To see Kyle become a leader at UVA and to see that people immediately saw everything in him that I saw in him. And when Kyle announced like his run for vice president, like everyone was so supportive. Everyone was so excited. Like people were kind of like, why didn't you run for president, Kyle? But, you know.
For the record, the answer to why I didn't run for president is because there was someone better for the job. And I didn't want to lose.
You're good.
So.
I don't think I put it together that, Amelia, you were president at the time that Kyle was vice president. Well, yeah, you guys make a great team. This is Admissible. I'm Natalie Blazer, Dean of Admissions at UVA Law. Being a Dean of Admissions is a lot about hearing people's stories through their applications and their interviews, and it's one of the main reasons I find this job to be as fulfilling as it is, because I love hearing people's stories. And as listeners may know, I especially love hearing people's love stories. Almost exactly 2 years ago, I released an episode called Law School Love Story, featuring 2 UVA law professors who met and fell in love here at the law school as first-year students. That one is season 4, episode 3, and to this day, it remains one of my all-time favorite conversations. So if you missed that one, be sure to go back and listen. Having said that, I am so excited about today's show because in honor of Valentine's Day coming up, we're doing part 2 of Law School Love Story, hopefully not the last part in this series, but this time with a very different angle. My guests today are third-year law students Amelia Isaacs and Kyle Trotman. They met long before attending UVA Law, which means they navigated the application cycle, selection process, attendance of law school, and job search together as a team, and have found incredible success along the way. I cannot wait for you to hear their story and to learn more about it myself. So without further ado, Amelia and Kyle, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having us.
Hi, thank you for having us.
You guys are definitely the best dressed, most stylish guests I've ever had on the show.
Well, we actually thought it was going to be on camera. Oh. Yeah, we thought it was like a YouTube
is it not
podcast.
on camera?
So there will be photographs, but it's not videoed because I think most people would probably, you guys would because you look great, but a lot of people would probably veto that. Can you each, Amelia and Kyle, please briefly introduce yourselves? Maybe where you grew up, undergrad, internship, work experience, anything you think is important for listeners to know about you before we get started.
All right, so I can go first. First off, I'm so grateful and lucky to be on this podcast. This is something that I saw before coming into law school, and now that I'm in law school, it's crazy to be featured on it. My name is Amelia Isaacs. I am a third-year law student at UVA Law. I went to undergrad at Florida State University, and before I came here, I worked in the Florida Senate for about a semester, and I also interned for the National Center for Youth Law. And anything else about me, where I grew up in Miami, Florida. Miss it. It's a lot sunnier than over here right now. It is a little cold, though, still for Miami. But yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Were you guys at the FSU game?
I was.
No.
I was at the game, and it was heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Oh,
I know.
I'm sorry.
All my UVA classmates were there, and they were cheering and storming the field, and I was just walking out by my lonesome.
It was really funny, like for the week after, I think even 2 weeks after, people were just coming up to me being like, how do you feel about the game? You must like not feel that upset because you went to Florida State and UVA, but no, I'm pretty sad about our loss. It was really embarrassing.
So Kyle.
Yeah, so my name is Kyle Trotman. I'm a current 3L at the law school, and I'm also from South Florida, from a suburb outside of Fort Lauderdale. And before law school, I went to Florida State University as well. I don't know if I said that. But I spent most of my time working at the Florida legislature. So first I was in the Senate for a little bit, and the House, and then back in the Senate. And then eventually I was working there for the year before I came to law school.
So knowing that you both grew up in South Florida, you both attended FSU, I am dying to know, because I don't even know this, how you guys actually met and how everything sort of came together. Can you guys share that?
It's going to be funny.
So I think Kyle and I have two different versions of this story.
This is the best. I love it when there's two different versions.
His is a lot more detailed than mine, so I'll tell my version and feel free to chime in with any other details that you want to add, Kyle. So we met on Tinder, the dating app. Yes, dating apps do work. Some people don't believe in them, but I do.
Oh my goodness. What year is this?
This was 2022, I think.
Yeah,
Right.
this is 2020. This is your senior year.
Okay, this is my senior year of college, or it might have been my junior year of college going into senior year.
Oh, yeah.
So we met on Tinder. I was swiping on Tinder, and I saw a profile with Kyle, obviously, and the bio was something like, "I'll cook for you," and I messaged him, and I usually never ever message first. I don't know. I don't know what got into me, but I saw Kyle's profile and I decided to message him first. And I said, "What are you going to cook for me?" And he said that we should do a date first. So then
Little bait and switch.
Yeah, really? Seriously?
Right. And then he asked me on a date, and we went on a lovely, wonderful first date. And we found out that we had a lot in common with each other, both from South Florida. We're both Caribbean. I'm Jamaican. He's Guyanese.
She's actually 25% Guyanese.
I'm 25%
so she's part Guyanese as well.
Which, his family likes to laugh at because, I really rep my Jamaican side. And I remember talking with him all night, and for me, that story kind of stops there. The rest was history, but Kyle has a lot more fun details.
Well, Kyle, where was this date?
This date was at Harry's in Tallahassee,
Okay.
and it's really nice. It's like in a little corner, and there's kind of like an overlook, and kind of like can see like a lot of Tallahassee, and so
Nice.
yeah, it's a nice spot. So my story differs a little. It's really important to my story that she said she messaged first, because I wasn't gonna message her where we matched, if she hadn't messaged first, because we had actually matched previously, and I had messaged her, and then she ghosted me, and then here's the real hard part, and this is really the sad part for me, is that later that week I had a class with her actually, but it was one of these huge classes, math for liberal arts, this is why we're in law school, and then it's these huge classes, it's a huge auditorium, but I'm up on the top, and I could see her on the bottom, still swiping on Tinder, and so when I matched with her again, I was really happy, but I was like, I can't message her first now.
I thought you were going to say you weren't going to message her first because you thought she might be out of your league.
Oops.
But
Well, evidently from her actions, she kind of, didn't give me the chance.
I was a different person back then. I've grown a lot. It's actually funny. On one of our dates after, he sat me down. He was just like, "I have to tell you something." And I was just like, "What?" And he was just like, "We matched before on Tinder." And I said, "What?" And he was just like, "We were in class together." And I said, "What?" And then he told me that whole story, and that was just really funny and embarrassing.
And she's kept up the act since then, so, kudos to her.
I messaged him first and all that. Yeah.
Well,
So you were a year ahead, Kyle.
we started college in the same year. We're both the same age, but Kyle did a program where he took extra classes, so he was able to graduate a year earlier than me,
Okay.
even though we were supposed to be the same class year.
Got it. Okay. So that class that you guys had together where you saw her swiping,
That was early on, so I
Okay,
I had remembered her,
And you remembered her. Wow. And you
and
got,
she hadn't remembered me, obviously, because I was ghosted.
wow.
Oh.
Yeah, like it's just I love this story, but it's also I cannot even imagine having these apps in college because you are seeing those people in real
Yeah,
life,
right?
and then they're right there. This is amazing. This is even better than I was expecting. So then you guys started dating. As Amelia said, the rest was history. So had you each individually by that point, like you knew that you wanted to go to law school, or how did that whole conversation come up where you were, said to each other like, "Hey, I'm interested in law school"?
So I think on our first date, that's one of the things that we both had in common, that we wanted to go to law school. For me at that point, I had concrete plans. Like I'd been studying for the LSAT for a few months. I was getting ready to take it, I think, in August. And then I think, Kyle, you had plans to go to law school, but you weren't studying for the LSAT as yet, and you weren't doing anything law school related at that point.
Yeah, I think I was just more hitting the wall. I was more hitting the wall. I don't think I was too happy working in the legislature, but I don't know. To be honest, I don't know. I'm definitely someone who didn't think too much past the idea of okay, you go to college, you get your degree, and you just do what you work in the job you want.
Yeah.
I was never one to think so far as like, oh, I have to, all the planning and all like, things that come after that.
Yeah.
And so I think that's something I was realizing at that point when I had met Amelia, it like just privately in my own that, do I have to go get like, Master's of Public Administration? Do I have to go, or like what even, or do I just stay a staffer forever? And so I was kind of, I was just hitting the wall really.
Yeah.
So after our first date, and we went on a few more, obviously, I would tell Kyle sometimes, like, hey, like, I have to study for the LSAT, so I don't know if you just don't want to do the date or if you want to just, like, be there while I study. And he was just like, no, I'll be there while you study. And then Kyle actually started studying for the LSAT, too.
You're a good influence.
I try.
Yeah, she made him take a practice test.
I made him take a practice test. And then from then on, we kind of just consistently started studying with each other, like studying more on our own and everything. And it was a very nice, like, natural development. Like, there was no, like, oh, like, you should really, really go to law school or anything. It was Kyle was just ready to start studying and take his practice test and start the application process. So, like, imagine we met, I think, in April. And then we applied to law school in like November of that year.
I applied in like December.
We applied in December of that year.
December.
But he went from not having prepared anything for law school to being ready to apply in December. So I just think that's a crazy turnaround.
Well, Kyle, I need to know. Were you actually like, okay, now I want to go to law school, or you just wanted to be around Amelia while she's studying for the LSAT?
I don't know. I think that's a good question. That's a good question. I will say one thing too is like Amelia was like really strong, passionate about going to law school, and my roommate was also really strong. So I'm coming home from the dates, from her, and then I'm hearing about his his plans and his cycle. So I think like that kind of all pushed me, and it's kind of sad to say, but because both Amelia and my roommate are like they're really big on the Reddits, they're really big on like super research and all that stuff. And so I like to say like everything I feel like, everything Amelia learned about law school before coming was like from Reddit, and everything I learned was from what she told me from what she saw on Reddit. and so I was like really, ill prepared, not well researched. Plus my roommate, what he saw from Reddit as well.
Well, so you were going through the process together, which I think like from even further back than I think I even realized from like studying for the LSAT and all that. And it sounds like you applied roughly around the same time.
Yes.
We were in Colombia when we applied. We went on a trip that December.
God.
We were doing things super fast, super quickly, but just doing things our way. Like we literally went to Colombia on the first like 5-6 months of being together.
Yeah, and not even like a Colombia like at the resort. Like we were like basically backpacking across the country, honestly.
And since it sounds like Amelia, maybe you had a more specific reason, I guess, for going to law school. Can you share a little bit about what was driving that purpose that Kyle just described?
Yeah, so when I was younger, I'd always really liked to read and write. I feel like this is a common thread around, like, a common thread with law students, but I always like to read and write. And I was told by, like, teachers and stuff, like, you would be a good, like, lawyer, but I didn't really know what that meant until I took a legal studies class in high school, and that's where I actually, like, got to write a legal brief. And I remember at first I was just like, this is so frustrating and annoying. Like, where's the answer? Like, why can I not find the answer online? But as I went through the process, I realized, like, okay, like, on purpose, it's really unclear. And I'm supposed to use, like, the vague things I find online to, like, make arguments and everything like that. So I think taking that legal studies class really formalized it a bit more. And then in college, I did my internship with the National Center for Youth Law. And I realized that I thought law was very, like, businessy. Like, I thought a lot of different things about it. I didn't think that I could use it to, like, help, like, the little guy. And when I was at the National Center for Youth Law, I realized that I could use it to help kids. I could use it to help kids, like, experiencing homelessness, kids going through the foster care system. And just the lawyers I talked to there were so passionate. They were the best advocates ever, and they really, I think, made that final push, that final convincing to go to law school. So it was after doing that internship when I was just like, okay, like, now that I have this idea, but now, like, I can make a plan because I know that this is for me. So it's after that I started with everything.
Wow, that's amazing. And so when you guys were on this Colombia trip, and applying, were you having the conversation about where? Did you have schools in mind that you really wanted to go to? Or how did you decide on your school lists? At that point, I guess, were you like, we want to go to the same place? Or were you open to going different places? Or how did that all work out?
So I think at that point, like being someone who was so set on going to law school, my biggest goal was going to a really good law school, like a T14 law school. So for me, that desire came above everything else, if that makes sense. Like Kyle and I had talked before about like schools we both wanted to apply to together. Like I think we both applied to like Harvard and Georgetown and like a few other T14s and Boston University, which is one I just wanted to go to. And I applied to Georgetown for Kyle because that's one that he wanted to go to. But I think we both had the idea like, okay, it would be nice if we were at this place together, but since we both like want to go to law school and become lawyers, like if we're not at the same law school, it's not the end of the world. Like we're still supposed to go to law school, and we just met each other, so we can't like upend our entire lives. But
very smart. Yeah. And what about you, Kyle? What was your thought process?
I think my primary focus in choosing a law school was just money, honestly. I mean, that's kind of how I just saw the whole process. It was just like, work as hard as you can on the application, on the LSAT, and then I just did as much money as I could get, I felt like.
Yeah. And through the process, because again, like you were hearing things from Amelia, you were hearing things from your roommate. Did you have more of an understanding by that point, like what you were looking for in a law school, aside from the money piece, but like what your goals were, or you were still kind of keeping it open?
I think at that point I had like more of a stronger reason of like why I wanted to go to law school, after my experience in the legislature. I think like for me the saddest part of constituents work was there was a lot of help we could do, and then there was just so much where it was like the only thing you could do was like refer to an attorney.
Yeah.
And so after doing that for like, about like a year, like that, that left an impression on me.
Totally.
And also in the Florida legislature at that time, it's like 2020 to 2023. So it's kind of like the worst years to be in the Florida legislature. And I just remember like it was just very powerless because I was in the super minority. And so it didn't matter how good an idea was, it was getting killed.
Yeah.
But, it was the lawyers who were, fighting after it leaves the legislature. And, all the jobs, even like, in the super minority, it was like, okay, we got to come up with a question so the lawyers can seize on it later or something like that in the commentaries. And so I just felt more and more like the things that I want, the reasons I got into legislature, it just seemed, doing good and helping people just seemed more lawyer-oriented. And so it just made more sense for me to, go to law school at that point. And then I was just really afraid of debt. And so...
Yeah, it's a real fear. And I hear that a lot from applicants. They hit a wall kind of in their own career or in, where everything is being referred to the lawyers, or let's ask the lawyers, or the lawyer's going to take it from here. You can only do so much. So I think that's something that's definitely relatable probably to a lot of listeners who are thinking of applying right now. So when you it sounds like you were applying sort of broadly, and then talk me through, like, how did it come together that you decided on UVA?
So UVA, I guess, I don't know, it wasn't really super on my radar for law school. It's somewhere I really wanted to go for undergrad. I just, I remember I was in the Jefferson Memorial and I was hearing about UVA and it just made me really want to go there as undergrad. And then I got in but I didn't get enough money, so I was like, I definitely couldn't go. And so that was always in the back of my head. And so then when I heard back from UVA, I think UVA was the first school I heard back from. And so we were super excited. I was super excited, and then, it just felt like kind of like a Cinderella moment, like full circle, like after like going through that experience.
So at first Kyle was the only person who applied to UVA. I hadn't applied to UVA because my friend went to UVA for undergrad, and she would tell like these stories about Charlottesville, and I was just like, oh my gosh, I don't want to be in Charlottesville. I'm already in Tallahassee, Florida, which is already this small town. I don't want to go to another one. But after Kyle had his interview, he kept talking about how good his interview was and like how much he learned about UVA and just like all of the benefits, like the clerkship opportunities, just like how welcoming everyone seemed. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like, okay, I need to apply to UVA because when Kyle gets an idea about something, he literally, like, with all love, does not stop talking about it. So I was just like, okay, like, let me see what this is about and let me apply. So it was after Kyle had his interview for UVA that I actually applied. And I think this is pretty late. This might have been in January, which I know is pretty late in the application cycle. I don't know how it is now compared to back then, but I assume that's still pretty late.
January is like sort of the median point, so I wouldn't consider it late.
Okay. So yeah, I applied in January, and I honestly didn't expect much because it was a bit later in the process. And then I remember we did a visit to UVA for Kyle, and we were touring the school. We talked a lot with Roseanne. We talked with like past like Black Law Students Association presidents, and everyone was just so welcoming and like willing to talk to us, and like they made time for us. Like before, we'd visited Georgetown, and there was literally no one in the admissions office. But it was it was crazy because we got there and there was literally no one there. Apparently, they have like a self-guided tour. I don't think we ended up going on the self-guided tour.
No, but the thing is, it was a crazy juxtaposition with UVA.
Of course.
Because the tours what sold me too, because I was working at the legislature at the time, and so I couldn't go to the Mid Students Weekend. And so I remember I called Roseanne. I told her I couldn't go to. And also Roseanne is a big part too, because I think the biggest thing for me was when I called Roseanne, and then she would just be like, "Oh, hi, Kyle," and not like, "Oh," like I was like, "Wow, you got caller ID," and then so that was like already such a personal touch. So basically, I told her I couldn't come to Admit Students Day, and I was really sad. And then she's like, "Oh, you should still come. Like, here's the weekend, you should come," and all that stuff. And then when we came, she'd really rolled out the red carpet and kind of made our own Admitted Students Weekend. And so that we got to talk to, like, the past BOSA presidents. We had our own, like, tour from one of the students. We were sitting in classes. And so I think it was just, like, once I saw, like, all that, like, personal touch and all that, like, intentionality.
Yeah.
I think it just made me think that, like, if the career office at UVA, if the professors at UVA, if everything at UVA is, like, half as good as this, then, like, it must be amazing. That's what sold me, because Georgetown had still been my top choice. And then And then the juxtaposition when we went to Georgetown, no one was there, and then we couldn't go in the library, and there was like an armed guard, and that was just like, it was just like not, which is probably maybe necessary, but it was just not my vibe, compared to the openness of UVA.
Yeah,
it couldn't be more different. Just giving them a little credit, like they're twice the size of UVA Law. Like the admission, it's a totally different operation there, and it's like. At UVA, we do care so much about the community. And like, I know Roseanne loved you from the time you guys interviewed, but we want to do that for everybody that we admit, because we want them to really feel like this is what this is like here. And you guys know, and we'll talk about this later, like you do interact so much with your classmates. So we are very intentional about who we're admitting, because you're not sitting in a 600-person lecture class or whatever it is. Anyways, I'm so glad you had that experience. Amelia, then you applied sort of through seeing that. And then at that point, were you guys thinking like, okay, this would be great if we were in the same place?
Yeah, I think so. At this point, I was still grappling with like accepting an offer from like another school. Like I was I think 90% about to go there. Yeah.
Wow.
And then I got into UVA and I was super excited, and obviously like I had the great experience, and I saw all of the stuff they talk about on Reddit about the community like actually come true, and I was just like, whoa, like that's insane. And then we did talk about like, like it would be cool to be in the same city, like it'd be cool to be at the same law school, like we could potentially like live together and stuff, but like also we don't want law schools to just be like, okay, we're only here because we want to be together. Like we also we care about like being like good lawyers. Like we care about like, the money we received at each school, like all of that kind of thing. And I knew like our families would both be upset at us if we made a decision just on the basis of like, can we be together at that place? So I was really struggling with the decision. I talked to so many people, and then the last thing that I did, which made me make up my mind, I went on Reddit and I made a post that was just like, okay, like UVA with this money I got versus like my other school with this money I got, like which one should I go to? I got like 12 comments, and every single comment said UVA. And I was just like, oh, okay. Well, there's a clear choice there. There's a winner there.
For once, Reddit got it right.
I think that's what's really like beautiful about the story of us coming to UVA Law is I think like we both independently kind of like fell in love with the school and like came to choose the school in our own way,
Yeah.
Me and the tour, and then Amelia on Reddit.
and the tour.
And the tour. I remember Amelia coming. I remember you two together when you visited. And now I'm wondering, you both fell in love independently with UVA, which is great. And you should have, I think if you had each fallen in love with two different schools, you should have gone to those two schools. So once, Amelia, you were admitted and the two of you were going to go to UVA, did you have any hesitations about being in the same place, or you were just like, no, this is my top choice now, and so this is the right choice?
So it's funny that you asked that. We actually emailed, I forget who we emailed, but we asked them, can we not be in the same section together?
It must
Because
have been Dean Dugas.
it might have been Dean Dugas, but we emailed and we said, we don't want to be in the same section together. One thing we were worried about going to the same law school is just hanging around each other and not making other friends, not really getting the law school experience. So I think that was definitely a big concern for both of us. We don't want it to be Amelia and Kyle in law school. We want it to be Amelia in law school and Kyle in law school. The person who we emailed said no. They were just you're probably not going to be in the same section anyway because there's 300 students and it's a crazy process and all of this. So, luckily, I ended up being in section J and he ended up being in section A, which are...
I know, that's the opposite ends.
Yeah,
right?
the opposite ends of the spectrum.
That's so funny. Well, we have 3 couples that were incoming couples in the 1L class this year, and part of me, I had a moment where I was I'm gonna go over to the registrar and just make sure that none of them share a section, but then I totally forgot because I was so busy, and so then the sections came out, and I'm oh my god, I forgot. But I checked, and none of them were in the same section. So I do believe that it works out. But they do really try to make it random. So that being said, some sections in 1L year do have class together. So did A and J have any classes together?
Yeah, in the spring we had con law together.
Oh my God! Who did you have?
Professor Ross.
Oh
Miss
my
him.
God! Oh, miss him. He is the best. He went back to California, where I know he had a whole family and community and all of that. But Professor
He was
Ross
my mentor
the best.
before he left, so it was really sad. It was really sad when he left. So send you love.
Yeah. If you're listening, Professor Ross,
We'll send this to him.
So you had con law together. So how was that, just being in class together?
So it was funny. I feel like we treated it like we did any other class. I sat with people from my section. Kyle sat with people from his section. And we didn't really talk that much about the class, surprisingly. I feel like when we got home, we had so many other things to talk about and just spend time with each other and stuff. I think towards the end, when final season did come, we started talking about con law more and trying to study a bit more. But I think for that first class, we were just so focused on being 1Ls and it wasn't anything crazy being in that first class together.
So this, I mean, I sort of made this assumption, but I think you just confirmed it. You guys were living together when you moved to Charlottesville?
Yes.
Okay, got it. I love what you said, though. I mean, you wanted to talk about all these other things that were going on. Maybe study together at some point, but 1L year is a huge adjustment. And I love the fact that you guys were each experiencing it individually enough to the point where when you came home at night, you had a lot to talk about. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you weren't just going through it, doing the same stuff.
Absolutely. And we also, Kyle and I were both in leadership for the Black Law Students Association. I was also doing stuff for SBA. So I think too, we had other obligations and stuff that we had to think about. When we got home, we were tired, so we didn't really do much class stuff. But I think it was nice too because we just really spent time with each other when we got home, and we didn't make it all about law school.
Yeah, I think that's just a great nugget of advice that you just dropped. You are still whole people outside of attending law school, and especially if you're nurturing a relationship. I think it's so important to remember that. Want to learn more about the first-generation student experience in law school? Be sure to check out Season 5, Episode 2 of the show, where we talked about the many ways UVA Law's first-gen student organization supports their growing membership on grounds.
We try to provide just a lot of useful events, opportunities for our members, people that identify with our mission, who believe that they belong into our group. And we do so, such that you don't have to only be in the first gen group. If you only want to come to our firm events, if you only want to do our mentorship program, you're welcome to do that. But so to actually kind of list things out, we work to pair 1Ls with upper class students, 2L, 3Ls, as well as with attorney alums if they're interested. We do a variety of different events with firms. I think there is a real kind of shift in the last 5-10 years of first-generation groups being founded on law school campuses, undergrad campuses, and law firms. Different legal organizations have employee groups of first-generation professionals working at that organization. And so this last year, the board planned to have a firm, only first-gen lawyers from a firm come and kind of do a panel to our members, in addition to working with like the Office of Private Practice or Public Service or clerkships to do kind of first-gen specific programming. And this year, we're also trying to lean into more community building things as well.
So you touched on extracurriculars and leadership positions. So can you each share, like, what were you doing that overlapped and what did you kind of do on your own in terms of extracurriculars?
I have nothing on my own, honestly. So in terms of extracurriculars, I was a 1L rep for BALSA, and then I was a vice president for BALSA. Amelia was the historian for BALSA, and then she was the president for BALSA. And then her thing that she did outside of me was SBA, and she killed it. And then we both were on VLR together.
Yeah, Virginia Law Review.
And we were actually together when we got the call. We were actually together on a family trip in New Orleans. We were in the casino. We were in the casino.
God.
And I remember when I got the call, and I told the person, it was Courtney, the editor-in-chief, and I was like, red or black? And she was asking in terms of like Taylor Swift albums. Cause I guess there's a red one and a black one. And then she said one, and then it hit.
Oh
So
my
it was
God.
really good.
That's so hilarious.
What a
We were
moment.
jumping up and down in
We
the
were
casino.
literally jumping up and down. Like, I was afraid security was going to remove us. We were both so excited. I think they called us at the same time on purpose, too. So there wasn't, like, one of us being like, oh, my God, I got on
Right.
VLR, and the other person automatically being like, okay, well, I didn't. Well,
Right.
but it was
Wow.
a surreal experience.
I have goosebumps. That's such a big deal. Your families, and to share it with on this family trip. That's amazing. So I have to brag about each of you. I'm sure it's obvious. You guys made law review. You've had all these leadership positions, but you each also received awards as students, which is not that common. It's not something that we really do at the law school. There are like maybe 3 or 4 like name brand awards that you can get as a student. There's obviously awards that they give out at graduation for different reasons, but like to recognize students while they are students and like the entire community comes together to nominate and decide. And you each got one as 3Ls, which I just think is, I hope you feel so proud of that because it really speaks to the impact you've had on the community and your classmates and your faculty and the staff. And having served on both of the committees previously, like when I say the amount of thought and effort that goes into and how close of calls these can be, because you guys know it's UVA law. Think about how many amazing
Yeah.
and deserving classmates there are, and only, a very small handful of students get awards each year. So having said that, I'm going to describe really quickly each of the awards you got, and then I want to hear kind of your experience. So Kyle, in September, you were awarded the Ritter Prize, which recognizes third-year students who best exemplify the qualities of honor, character, and integrity envisioned by Thomas Jefferson when he founded UVA. And Amelia, just a few weeks ago, you received the Gregory H. Swanson Award, which is given in honor of the first Black student to attend the University of Virginia.
Woo!
That's right. To commemorate his legacy, each year UVA Law honors a student who demonstrates the qualities that Swanson himself embodied, including courage, perseverance, and a commitment to justice. Listeners can't tell, I'm beaming with pride. I could cry. I want to hear a little bit about like how that was to be recognized in that way, just how you felt about it for yourself, and then how you felt to see your partner recognized in that way.
It feels amazing to see Amelia win. I think it just because I nominated her for it, and so like I'm running down the letters and writing my own letter and things like that. And I think that process in and of itself is like a really big moment of like reflection to like really think, because you're trying to put into words why she deserves like such an amazing award, and it's like one of the only opportunities you have to kind of like put down to paper and like kind of make this case of like all the things that like you see that like no one else sees.
Oh.
When she's making these decisions in leadership or when she's foregoing like, schoolwork to like help a friend or something like that. And it's like, these are all things that like you see it and like no one ever gets to see it, and everyone just thinks, oh, like she has it all together, she's amazing, like, it's so easy for her. But it's just like, these things are hard, like law school is really hard. And to do law school and to do school and also have like an impact on people in like a positive way is hard. And, a lot of people don't see the behind the scenes, but, I got to see the behind the scenes. And then, putting pen to paper and also like talking to people, like getting those experiences out of them on pen and paper, and making that whole application, it's just it's a really beautiful experience. And then for her to win it after you put that in, and it's just like, it feels amazing.
Oh my goodness.
That is a beautiful description. Gosh, I don't know how I can follow up with that one. I also nominated Kyle for the Ritter Award. And Kyle is someone who didn't do leadership when he was an undergrad. And I was just like, why did you do that? Like, you would be the perfect leader. Like, you're so kind and intelligent. And the way that Kyle interacts with people, like, I feel like people immediately like see everything that I see in Kyle. Like, they know, like, he's just so like intentional, and he's so kind and funny and just a really good talker. So to see,
You're a really
good talker. I mean,
lot of practice.
Yeah, lots of practice. But to see Kyle become a leader at UVA, and to see that people immediately saw everything in him that I saw in him, and immediately recognized, like, people, when Kyle announced like his run for vice president, like, everyone was so supportive, everyone was so excited, like, people were kind of like, why didn't you run for president, Kyle? But but it was really amazing because I knew that Kyle would make an impact, and he did, and he continues to make an impact even like in VLR and all of the other stuff that he's done. So no, it's been beautiful. It's been fantastic. Like, seeing people write letters and seeing the things that people have to say about Kyle, especially like his closest friends. Like, obviously, like, I see the closeness of the relationship, but I don't know really what's underneath the surface. And just to see like how much they love him, I don't know. It was really fantastic, and I'm so glad that we were in this position and we got to do this together.
For the record, the answer to why I didn't run for president is because there was someone better for the job, and I didn't want to lose.
You're good.
So,
So were you president at the same time that you were vice president?
yeah, conflict of interest, right?
Oh my gosh,
goodness. So
what
we're
a
talking
time.
about Black Law Students Association, where previously, I don't think I put it together that, Amelia, you were president at the time that Kyle was vice president. Well, hey, you guys make a great team. And I love how supportive you were. Just, it's so clear how supportive you are of one another, but that went above and beyond to where you're nominating each other, for these awards, because that's really like, you're not just supporting what the other one does. You want the other one to get recognition. And Amelia, I was not able to be there, but I heard that at the Swanson ceremony, everybody was just bawling. Like, everybody was just crying. And
Wasn't my intention.
no, of course not. But like, I'm getting emotional in here because it's a really, like Kyle said, it's a beautiful thing to see. It's one thing to see certain things in your partner, and then when you know that other people feel that way too, and that they get the recognition they deserve, it's just amazing. So before we start to wrap up, I want to talk a little bit about like the job search process, because I know that this is more and more, I've talked about this on the podcast recently, like becoming so integrated with the law school experience, right? It's not just like kind of happening in a week or two in OGI like it did when I was a student. So like, how have you two navigated the job search process throughout your 3 years in law school? And like, again, I imagine even more so than the law school application process, you're factoring each other in terms of location and things like that.
Yeah, so I think one big thing for us is we both, and which is good that we didn't have to decide in law school, we both knew we wanted to be in D.C.
Okay.
So we already knew that we were both going to be like applying to places in D.C. That made that easy. In terms of supporting each other, I mean, for us, I know that there can be a thing of like, if you're finding out like your friends are getting certain jobs and you're not, or your friends are getting certain outcomes and you're not, you can start to feel bad about yourself. But I feel like for us, it was never a competition. Like for us, it's just always like supporting each other and like, being there when you make that application, being there when you make that call, or when you get that call. So during 1L, I was a legal intern at Covenant House, a nonprofit, and I did that remotely, but I got to move to D.C. with Kyle, who worked at Aiken Gump as a pro bono scholar.
I think it's also hard to compare too, because for the most part, I was originally going to do public interest.
Okay.
And then she was applying to firms, and so there wasn't like that. It wasn't like that big overlap.
I see.
Until the pro bono scholarship, that came out of nowhere. That was like that came out of nowhere. That was a pretty big anomaly. So
so you were going in kind of different like spheres a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
That's another thing too. Like when it came to the 1L and 2L job process, like 1L, Kyle was public interest, and then he pivoted to going to a firm with Aiken at doing the pro bono scholarship program. And then 2L, like I was just doing firms, and Kyle like already had his job through that. So like there wasn't even any opportunity to like compare ourselves or anything like that. Like it was kind of, we were both running our own race, and we both like got our outcomes when we did. And yeah, when I graduate, I'm going to be going to Steptoe in D.C., which I'm super excited about. And then you'll be going to Aiken.
Yeah, 3 for 3.
Amazing. Well, and like I just have to say this. I mean, I feel that you two so much embody the UVA law community in the sense that it's when you know that the other is going to succeed because they're so great, it makes it that much easier to support one another, right? Like you're not going to compete with each other because you're also going to get something great. I tell people this about the greater UVA law community. You two are like shining star examples of that. Like, you know, Kyle, if Amelia gets a great job, you're not going to feel remotely competitive or threatened by that because you also are going to get a great job. Do you know what I'm saying? And I feel that that's just, again, a microcosm of the UVA law community. There's no sense of scarcity. It's everybody is doing wonderful things and going to get wonderful things.
It's inspiring to see people do well. You know, seeing people do well makes me want to work. You know, it makes me want to, now I'm like, get back in my lane, you know? Yeah,
it's inspiring, and I feel that whatever energy you put into the world, you're going to get back. I fully believe that. So when you're happy for people's success, yes, it inspires you, but it also, I think, that can only come back to you in positive ways.
Absolutely.
That's how I feel. So I'm curious, like Charlottesville. Amelia, you mentioned that you were not so sure about Charlottesville, which, like, fair enough, because not a lot of people have been here before they come for a visit. They think of UVA, they think of small town, they think of Central Virginia, so there, I could see there, maybe are some hesitations. What do you feel now, having lived in Charlottesville for 3 years? Like, what will you miss about it? What do you guys like to do in the city? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I feel like when I came here for the first time, I didn't do that much around the city since I was just with Kyle for UVA. And I didn't see that much of Charlottesville, and I was still a little scared. After being here for 3 years, I love Charlottesville so much. This is such a beautiful place and such a different place from where I've ever lived before. Like, Florida, the entire thing is flat, no mountains, the weather doesn't change. It's in Tallahassee, Florida, where I went to college. Such a small town. Smaller than any town I've ever been in. Like, not to rag on Tallahassee too much, but that city really sucks. But Charlottesville is so much fun. There's so many things you can do here, like all of the wineries you can go to. Like, you can go on a hike if you want to. Like, you can get into the small, towny things and, get to know the locals. The downtown mall is really nice, too, and they have a lot of fun events. The Paramount Theater, I saw a ballet there. We're going to go see an orchestra there for Valentine's Day.
Aww.
And I find that I was able to, integrate into the city a lot better than I was with Tallahassee. I don't know, this just feels like my place. I like my little house in Belmont. I like that I go to Albemarle Baking Company and I get, my princess cake. It's so delicious.
Love that cake.
I've ordered it so many times. Yeah, I really do love Charlottesville. Whenever my friends visit, I'm just we have to, go to a winery. We have to see everything around here. And they're just it's just Charlottesville. I'm just no, it's Charlottesville.
No, that makes me so happy. Okay, so we're running short on time, and I do want to make sure that we get to your advice for listeners, who are going through the process or thinking about law school, thinking about UVA, anything. So definitely application advice, but then also maybe if you have tips. I think you've shared this all throughout, but specific advice for like if people are managing it as a couple?
Yeah, one thing I would say, just general advice, like apply as early as you can. I think applying early gives you more opportunity for scholarships. It gives you more opportunity, like being admitted, like that kind of thing. Another general thing, like make sure that you're getting what you want out of the LSAT prep that you're using, like whether that's like, what do they have now? Like 7 Sage, Test Masters, or whatever. Crystal Ball, Power Score, something we loved, and we would sit and put the videos on his TV and watch them. But just, make sure that you're seeing results from it. And if you're not seeing results from it, like switch sooner than later. And then like couple specific, I would say, I think if you really want to go to law school, your top focus should be going to law school. Even if it's like, if you're in a couple, both of you guys want to go to law school, like one person gets into one place that you both want to go to and like you don't get into that place, like, considering like maybe I can take a year off and I can go to that law school. I can go to another law school in the area. But just don't like defer your dreams for too long just because you're in a relationship. And I know there are different considerations when you have like kids and everything like that. But I would say like if you don't have any other like responsibility, like you should focus on going to law school. And, if that's like you need to take a year off and you need to just like, get a higher score to be in the same place, like that's what you have to do. If you have to go to law schools in similar areas, that's what you have to do. If you have to go to different law schools, that's what has to happen. And I know I can't speak too much on that because we're literally at the same law school. But, I feel like we've touched on it a lot. Like no matter what happened, we both would have been in law school. So.
Absolutely. And you have to do what's right for you.
Yes.
And I think if you're in the right relationship, that person will also know that, you have to do what's right for yourself. So I co-sign everything you just said.
For one, everything takes longer than you think. So when you're planning on applying, and especially like letters of recommendation, so I would just say, have like a 3-month buffer period that you're adding on to wherever your target time is to apply, because everything does just take longer.
Great advice.
But on the couple specific, I think this is important for when you're applying, but it's also important to like when you're in law school together, when you're lawyers together, or even like just two like high stress jobs together. And I think that, a lot of times like we have this idea of like, supporting your partner, supporting people, and that like, it seems like it's necessary to like give up on something that you have to do to support your partner or something like that. And what the problem with that like conception of like supporting someone is that like or how you should feel supported is that when you're in a high stress job, when you're applying to law school, or when you're in law school together, is that like it's really hard for that to happen because you're both doing the exact same thing.
Yeah.
So it's really hard for you, to like give it up and do it, And so I think it's just like remembering that and just reciprocating and being proactive, and I think being open with that type of support it's important to remember, and that sometimes, and then being gracious, and that sometimes you're not always going to be able to feel the same support as someone if your partner wasn't in law school.
Yeah.
And they like because there's a lot of couples who one person in law school, one person's working, doing remote work or something, they're able to give a lot more support to their partner than sometimes I wish I could give to Amelia.
Aww.
And I think it's just she's good to give me like grace for that, and it's important to like give your partner grace for that as well, because you guys are both doing something incredibly hard.
I'm so touched by that answer, because you're recognizing that, like, even though you are both clearly very supportive partners, like, you always kind of wish that you could do more, which is just the sweetest thing I've ever heard. But also, I think it's important to also recognize you probably don't have the bandwidth that many other people would have to support one another, but you have understanding. Right? That like, you know how difficult what she's dealing with, and vice versa, because you're also kind of going through a similar phase. And I also think, especially when it comes to your practice of law, just remember that there are what I have termed seasons of sacrifice. So like Amelia, you might be going through a season of sacrifice when Kyle is on a crazy, case, and you have a little bit more time and energy, and so you're the supportive one, and then it's going to flip around, right? There are going to be times when you're both crazy and you both have limited bandwidth, but just remember that like it's never going to be, especially in a couple as strong as you, it's never going to be one-sided for long, even if it is going to be temporarily, if that makes sense. And I think it takes a lot for two lawyers to be in the same household. I'm serious.
Oh gosh.
Because plenty of people do it. And I think because you're lawyers, you also know how to balance your time. You also know how to communicate well. You have all of those really, really high EQ functioning skills, so I'm not worried at all. But just also, like Kyle said, give yourselves grace when it can feel overwhelming because you're both doing so much on the professional sphere. You also clearly have like interests and things outside of practicing. So you're a whole person. As Amelia said at the beginning, like remember that you're a whole person. So you guys, this was awesome. Is there anything else you want to say before we go? Do we want to make sure listeners know about you or your story or law school, anything?
Don't listen to lawyers who tell you not to go to law school.
Okay. Tell me more.
Every lawyer before I went to law school told me not to go to law school.
Isn't that crazy that I've heard that stereotype as well? People told me that too. And I think maybe because they didn't go to UVA law school.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that's probably is what it is.
And most people, if not all, who go to UVA say kind of the opposite. They loved their time. So I'm glad that you said that.
I think for me, I'm a first-generation law student. And being a first-generation law student, I didn't have that many resources and like connections when I was looking to go to law school. And I just didn't know that much. I would say like for anyone else, I hope I have some more first-gen like potential law school applicants that are listening to this. Like, please feel free to like, when you see like someone who looks like you at a law school, like feel free to reach out. Like so many people have reached out to me and asked me about the process, and like I've like on LinkedIn or something, and I've like responded. And I've been able to help them, or like I know like a lot of my other friends too have been able to help in that way. So like reach out, like look into the first generation organizations at law schools too. Like we have a really good one at UVA, UVA First Gen. But yeah, like look into those resources. Like the world is your oyster. You have there's a lot more that you can find than you think. I unfortunately I didn't look for any of that stuff when I was applying, but just know that that's out there for you and it's not an impossible process. So.
And I'm glad that this podcast somehow got on your radar because that's a huge reason of why I started it in the first place. So, and now you two are going to give back to all those applicants out there. So Kyle and Amelia, I am just grinning ear to ear. I'm so proud of you both. I'm so happy that I got to hear more of your stories. So thank you for coming on today.
Thank you for having us. This is so fun.
Good luck, everybody.
Good luck.
This has been Admissible with me, Dean Natalie Blazer at the University of Virginia School of Law. My guests today were Amelia Isaacs and Kyle Trotman from the class of 2026. For more information about UVA Law, please visit law.virginia.edu. The next episode of Admissible will be out soon. In the meantime, you can follow the show on Instagram at Admissible Podcast. Thanks so much for listening, and please remember to rate the show wherever you listen to podcasts.